बहुत नज़दीकी से काम किया। ये तो दो सहयोगी एक साथ पार्टी की मजबूती के लिए किस तरीके के काम करना, इसी के है हमारे चुनाव। मैं चाहता हूं कि हमारी पार्टी में इस किस्म की बदलाव आ जाए ताकि जो वोटर्स हमारे साथ नहीं रहे 2014 में और 2019 में, कि वो वापस आए हमारे पास।
हम दोनों भाई भाई हैं, एक ही पार्टी में रहते हैं। कोई अपनी बात अलग ढंग से कर सकता है, मैं अपने विचार अलग ढंग से रख सकता हूँ, तो उसमें कोई हमारे में उनमें कोई भेद नहीं है। तो वो भी हमारे घर के, हमारे फैमिली मेंबर्स हैं कांग्रेस पार्टी के। अपने शाह से भाई शिकायत हम दोनों मिलके उनसे करना चाहिए, चाहे इन्फ्लेशन पे हो, चाहे अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट पे हो।
With that, let's now shift our attention over to the state of Uttar Pradesh. There's been a crackdown underway on unrecognized madrasas in the state of Uttar Pradesh. The state's Madrasa survey has indicated gross misconduct in the management of several madrasas located in Prayagraj and Muradabad. The madrasas under scanner have reportedly failed to provide satisfactory information of their sources of funding and affiliations. Remember, the survey had 11 points in it, and the two most important among them were about disclosing the source of funding and affiliations. Beyond this, 800 madrasas in 20 districts across the state have been deemed unrecognized, and the survey will continue until the 20th of this month. All right, Shashi Tharoor of the Congress Party is currently addressing a press conference. Let's listen in to what Shashi Tharoor has to say.
तो साहब से हम सीधा रिक्वेस्ट करेंगे कि सम्मानित सभी प्रेस प्रतिनिधियों से आप बात कर लें, उसके बाद आगे का कार्यक्रम किया जाए। तो माननीय परम आदरणीय डॉक्टर शशि थरूर आप लोगों से विचार विमर्श करें।
बहुत शुक्रिया। मैं धन्यवाद, नमस्कार और नमस्कार माध्यमों को। मैं बहुत खुश हूँ ये बिहार की पवित्र भूमि में पहुँच सका, राजेंद्र बाबू का जगह, और जिस प्रदेश में इतने सारे महत्वपूर्ण चीज़ हमारे इतिहास में हुए हैं, और इस ऐतिहासिक सुधाकर आश्रम में आप लोगों को मिलना मुझे अच्छा लगा। मैं हमारे जो डेलीगेट्स आए हैं उनसे मिलने जा रहा हूँ। आपको पता है चुनाव चल रहे कांग्रेस पार्टी के भीतर। 17 सोमवार को हमारे कार्यकर्ताओं, पीसीसी डेलीगेट्स जो कहा जाता है, उनको मत देने का, मतदान करने का मौका मिलेगा। और मैं हूं यहाँ मेरे जो घोषणा पत्र के बारे में लोगों को समझाने के लिए और उनके समर्थन मांगने के लिए। मैं माफ कीजिए, तो मैं ज्यादा भाषण नहीं देना चाहता हूं क्योंकि डेलीगेट से अब तक नहीं मिले, लेकिन मैं आपसे पूछूंगा, अगर आपके मन में कोई प्रश्न है मैं जवाब देने के लिए तैयार हूं। सिर्फ 2-3 छोटी चीजें बताओ, उसके बाद एक चीज है 2-3 छोटी चीजें बताओ। एक है कि ये चुनाव कांग्रेस को मजबूत करने के लिए वाले चुनाव है, क्योंकि हम चाहते हैं कि हम एक उदाहरण दे दें भारतीय लोकतंत्र के लिए, और दूसरे जो पार्टी से
Namaste, you're on the Nation at 5. I'm Anand Narsuman and we're coming to you live from the newsroom here at CNN News 18. We start with big developments coming through, ladies and gentlemen, which will have immediate ramifications on India too. And there are many levels and layers upon which this can be interpreted and looked at. But the big news is that Pakistan seems to be all ready to emerge out of the FATF grey listing. That's the big development that's coming through right now. Our investigations editor Manoj Gupta getting us these details that Pakistan is all set to exit the grey list where it has been languishing over the last 3 to 4 years. But it has served as serious impediment to its ability to try and raise funds, and it has also crippled the entire terror mechanism that's been operating out of the Pakistan atmosphere or ecosystem. But more importantly, it has had a severe dent. It has placed a severe dent on the machinations of the Pakistani establishment to bleed India with 1,000 cuts. So this will have immediate ramifications for Pakistan and also for India. What we have given to understand is that Pakistan has got the green signal for the FATF whitelist. Pakistan reportedly has complied with 40 FATF recommendations. There is an FATF meeting in Paris between the 18th to the 21st of October, and the MOS Foreign Affairs, Hina Rabbani Khar, will be attending that meeting. And Pakistan is likely to satisfy 11 critical conditions that have been set by the FATF. I have Sushant Sarinji joining us, Senior Fellow ORF and Strategic Affairs Expert. Sushantji, this is moving on expected lines, but there is also a hidden hand that is dealing these cards.
Yeah, Anand. In fact, there was a lot of speculation that Pakistan could come out of it, in part because they have successfully fooled the international community, and partly because they've been playing victim, that they are reeling under floods and what have you, and that large costs have been imposed on them. But purely on objective criteria, while the Pakistanis might have taken some legal action, some might have changed, at least on paper, the processes and procedures to prevent terror finance, to prevent money laundering. The fact of the matter remains that as far as the actual financing of terrorism is concerned, it happens under the watchful eyes of the ISI. And there are banks like the Habib Bank and others. Habib Bank, incidentally, has been indicted in the US for terror finance. Habib Bank was also the bank. Do you remember there was a time when India was planning to open up some kind of banking? The Pakistanis had nominated the Habib Bank. Now, add 2 and 2, and you can figure out why Habib Bank. Because it's a bank which is notorious for its dealings with terrorists. And that is why it was being nominated out here. It was going to be the Pakistani bank in India. Thankfully, that didn't happen. But if you look at, the Pakistani approach, this is yet another eyewash action. Anand, these guys, they've tried to satisfy the West by imprisoning Hafiz Saeed, although I don't think he's in prison really. Because there are photographs of him in public rallies, although technically he's supposed to be in prison. Then they've said they don't know the whereabouts of Masood Azhar. They've tried to throw the Taliban under the bus by saying Masood Azhar has gone to Afghanistan. So they don't want to shuck up on Masood Azhar. They have arrested Sajid Mir, and this after proclaiming him dead and saying that he had been buried. So I think the West is either woke or so gullible or so stupid that it seems to have been taken in by the Pakistani, actions. Even though, Anand, let me tell you, the Asia Pacific Group report on Pakistan says that out of the 11 immediate outcomes, Pakistan has delivered only on 1. On 10 of those immediate outcomes, Pakistan's performance has not been satisfactory. And yet, if you are going to be taking them out of the FATF grey list and putting them back in the white list, then all I can say is that it's a travesty of the entire FATF process, which otherwise operates on very objective criteria, and actually had kept Pakistan, because Pakistan had tried to do this eyewash action earlier, and when the FATF inspectors had gone to Pakistan and started questioning the Pakistani authorities, they had found out that this was nothing but a complete game of deception. Apparently, this time they seem to have given in to Pakistan and all the kind of breast beating that the Pakistanis were doing, making accusations and allegations that this is a very politically tainted process. Well, it is now seems to be a politically tainted process, but on the Pakistani side rather than against Pakistan, because on purely objective criteria, there is absolutely no reason to bring Pakistan out of the grey list.
Well, we've got access to the 11 conditions that were actually set. So CNN News 18 has accessed these 11 conditions that were set by the FATF, and also say that Pakistan is likely to successfully make a case of complying with all these 11 conditions. Our investigations editor Manoj Gupta getting us these details, and Sushant Sareen was only now mentioning that the FATF APAC, this region, had actually said that Pakistan had satisfied only one out of these 11 conditions. What are these 11 conditions? Now, let's try and understand. Ensuring prevention of money laundering and terror financing. This is to ensure that will not that happens. Swift punishment of those involved in money laundering. Create checks to deter terror financing operations. Implement tough laws to end terror financing permanently. Arrest and identify assets of heads of banned organizations. Sanctions against banks linked to money laundering and terror. Prevent illegal fundraising by banned organizations. Highlight illegal foreign transactions to law enforcement. Identify all assets and operations of banned organizations. Ensure strong laws for financial background checks. And ensure strong laws for financial records of suspected outfits. So Masood Azhar is in now Afghanistan. Ayman al-Zawahiri has been neutralized in Kabul. All terror organizations are now in Afghanistan. And those which are operating in Pakistan, I have got very, very legal and pliant fronts. So has Pakistan enacted the charade brilliantly, Sushant Sareenji, or is the West playing another double game?
Anand, I think the West is playing a double. Let me give you an example of this double game. According to the Pakistanis themselves, their election commission, after 8 years of investigating Imran Khan's records, financial records, have said that Imran Khan has engaged in money laundering. Right?
Right.
Now, you have the prime minister of that damn country who has been engaged in money laundering, and then you expect that the Pakistanis are going to set in place very tight and watertight kind of fail-safe money laundering standards. Now either I'm a complete Charlie, or the West simply does not want to see the reality for what it is. Because how can a prime minister of a country be accused of money laundering by their own investigating agencies, and yet he gets away scot-free? Okay, the current prime minister has just been given a clean sheet on charges of money laundering. Correct. All Pakistani politicians are involved in money laundering. On terror finance, please tell me what are the assets of terrorist organizations which have actually been seized of not just the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, but a number of other terrorist organizations which have cropped up in Pakistan. So, one can give you chapter and verse on how this whole process is taking place and how the Pakistanis are pretending that they are actually cracking down on all of this and delivering. But actually they are not. Because when it comes to actual terror finance and money laundering, yes, on the face of it, if you go to a bank today, you have to withdraw money or receive money. There'll be 20 forms to fill up. But none of those forms will be there once you take them out of the grey list. Number one. Number two, once you have taken this sword over the head, how are you going to force compliance on them? Correct. Number three, the biggest problem, that when it comes to state-sponsored terrorism which is sponsored by the Pakistani state against other countries, and I mean the ISI in specifically the ISI, when they are going to be involved in terrorist activities and they have to secure funding for these guys or launder money for these fellows, which bank is going to be able to stand up and say that no, you are violating the law? So yes, an ordinary citizen on the street will be made to jump through the hoops to show that you are complying with the FATF mandates and the FATF regulations. But where it actually counts, these are guys who are going to go away scot-free. The entire Pakistani real estate market operates on money laundering.
It is.
So
but for the Pakistanis, they've just turned around and said, we are just into the import-export business of cash. So that's what hamara export ka business hai, cash ka. That's what that's how they seem to be legitimizing it, and the West, largely led by Uncle Sam, seem to be buying it. Now we've got reaction from the Indian government sources also on this possibility. They're also keeping a close watch on the current situation. And what top Indian government sources are telling CNN News 18 at this point, there are reports of successful compliance of Pak, but this is all a complete whitewash. This is all bumkum. Terror camps and funding nexus still exist in Pakistan. FATF teams never visited terror breeding grounds in POK. Arrest of Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar chiefs only a photo op. Top terror commanders in ISI safe houses. And madrasas in Pakistan are being used to spread jihadi propaganda. So the Indian government source telling us what we already know and what the world knows. But Pakistanis were able to manage Sushant Sareen, getting the ambassador, the US ambassador to Pakistan to go there and call it Azad Kashmir in POK standing there and put out a video of that. They have also been able to successfully shell this entire charade. They have legitimized the Haqqanis, a terrorist outfit, by putting them in government in Afghanistan. Did the trade-off, is this the biggest trade-off? The trade-off is that they gave up Zawahiri and they opened up their airspace for the American drones to fly to Kabul.
Well, at least on the face of it, that seems to be the trade-off. But I think there is an element of signaling from the American side to us that, okay, fine, since you are so interested in showing your strategic autonomy, let us shaft you a little bit and use the Pakistan angle. Perhaps there is that element which is also at play, number one. Number two, I think the Americans are also trying to, make up or at least have a working relationship going with the Pakistanis. Please remember that during the current floods, the Americans are the largest donors to Pakistan, despite the fact that the Pakistanis, have made them actually lose the war in Afghanistan. The Pakistanis were responsible for that, something that the Americans know very well, but seem rather diffident or reluctant or pusillanimous to be able to do anything about. So they seem to have accepted that. I think so. That relationship is not exactly going back to the old 50s and 60s kind of a relationship, but it serves as a good counterweight to India. So to that extent, the Americans are not averse to using the Pakistanis against India. Some of that might be also at play.
Is it also to try and wean Pakistan away from the Chinese a little, so that America still has a little bit of a foothold there to hold there?
Anand, that again is an American delusion if they think the Pakistanis are ever going to move away from the Chinese. But for the Americans, unless of course the Americans are so completely clueless that they don't know the meaning and the sentiment that will happen in India of seeing the American ambassador go to POK, unless they are completely insensitive to Indian concerns, I would imagine that was to a plan. That was to send a signal to us. And quite clearly, I think that is something which is also at play. And taking the Pakistanis out of the FATF grey list is probably yet another favor that the Americans are doing to the Pakistanis. Please remember...
Would you read all of it in conjunction, Sushantji? I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but because I want you to add this and also expand on it. The POJK remark, Azad Kashmir remark by the ambassador, the IMF extension of the dole, for the service and upgrade of the F-16s, and to say that it's like a counter-terrorism measure. Then this entire aspect of the FATF angle. Is Uncle Sam allowing Pakistan to be propped up yet again, despite knowing that it is the Pakistanis who ran America aground with respect to Afghanistan? And why would they want to do it?
I wouldn't say in entirety, but I would say to some extent I would go along with your take or the question which you are asking. I would go along it to some extent. I would go along with it that it does seem that the Americans are trying to pull them out of the kind of morass in which these guys are caught, in the hope of using them as a bit of a counterweight against India. Number one, number two, to use them for some counter-terrorism objectives which the Americans might have, and generally to keep the Pakistanis afloat. Keep them as a kind of a going concern. Because if the Pakistanis go under, then the Americans think that there will be a lot more cost to be paid than to keep them afloat somewhat. And the Pakistanis have their own wish list, which the Americans are giving into them. But I think just as what the Americans did in the last 20 years by turning a blind eye to what the Pakistanis were doing. I think they will end up paying a very heavy price for the flirtation with the Pakistanis this time around as well. I don't think they're going to come off, smelling of
What
roses
should
out
we
of
do?
this one.
Or should we just go about our business and then, deal with it? Because it has hurt us, this American mollycoddling of the Pakistanis and doling out the dollars which have been directed towards India. And now when we are trying to push forth our growth story, do we want the Pakistanis energized with more dollars coming in, which they will again try and direct towards disrupting India? What should be our approach?
Anand, I believe Allah is great. And Allah will make sure that the Pakistanis will keep doing what they are doing and keep going down the hill. I think the trajectory on which they are, I don't see any way out for them, unless of course the Americans are ready to give them about $100 billion or thereabouts. Pakistan is something of a bottomless pit. You can keep throwing money at it, and that money will keep disappearing. Let me just give you a small example. Just a couple of weeks back, they'd got over $1 billion from the IMF, and there was expectation that a lot more money will start flowing in. And at that point of time, the foreign exchange reserves, and this is just a couple of weeks back, at that point of time, the foreign exchange reserves reached about $9 billion. Now, suddenly they're back down to $7.5 billion. And if they don't get further infusions of money, it'll go further down. Then they have this genius of Ishaq Dar as their finance minister, who actually believes that making a strong rupee against the dollar is the secret to success. Now, in the metaverse in which Mr. Ishaq Dar lives, it might be so. But as far as the principles of economics is concerned, by overvaluing the rupee against the dollar, you're only going to lead to a further balance of payments crisis going forward. You might be able to stall the fall of the rupee for some more time, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, but eventually it will fall harder than what it has already. So I think I have full faith in the Pakistanis for messing it up, and regardless of what the Americans do with them. And if the Americans want to continue to flirt with the Pakistanis to try and, signal to India, then when the Americans come back to us, I think we can extract a much higher price from them than what we can do at this point in time. So I think we should hold our horses. We should be confident in our own abilities and our own capacities and our own strengths, and we can ride this out and actually profit from it going forward.
Right. Thank you very much, Sushantji. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for joining with us on this joining us on this very special, exclusive news break that we brought to you here, Top of Nation at 5. Our investigations editor Manoj Gupta getting us the details that Pakistan is all set to emerge out of the grey list into the white list. We'll take a very, very short break. When we come back, what happened in Varanasi around the Gyanvapi case?
और वही फोकस करती हूँ कि अपने स्ट्रेंथ पे ज़्यादातर रहूँ.
Australian cricketer David Warner's lifetime leadership ban could be lifted as the Cricket Australia directors are contemplating rewriting the organisation's code of ethics. Warner was handed a leadership ban following the infamous 2018 ball tampering scandal. But the 35-year-old, who is closing in on 100 T20 internationals and 100 test appearances, has been looked upon as a possible candidate for Australia's vacant ODI captain's position. In a fresh twist in the Congress presidential poll, Shashi Tharoor has alleged that there is a difference in treatment between candidates within the party. Tharoor has claimed that there is a bias and an uneven playing field in the elections within the party, and the election for the Congress top leadership is supposed to happen on October 17, and the results will be declared on the 19th of October.
हम चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं, कोई दुश्मनी का कोई स्पिरिट नहीं है हमारे पार्टी में. खड़गे साहब तो मेरे सीनियर नेता है, मैं उनके साथ काम भी किया हूं. जब वो लोकसभा में लीडर थे, मैं उनके साथ बहुत नज़दीकी से काम किया. ये तो दो सहयोगी एक साथ पार्टी की मजबूती के लिए किस तरीके के काम करना, इसी के है हमारे चुनाव. मैं चाहता हूं कि हमारी पार्टी में इस किस्म की बदलाव आ जाए ताकि जो वोटर्स हमारे साथ नहीं रहे 2014 में और 2019 में, कि वो वापस आए हमारे पास.
Prime Minister Modi was in pole-bound Himachal Pradesh today, where he flagged off the 4th Vande Bharat Express from Una to New Delhi. Later in the day, Prime Minister also laid the foundation stones of 2 hydropower projects and launched the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana in Una. The state government has announced and inaugurated projects worth more than 4,000 crores in different constituencies over the past month.
भारत की चौथी वंदे भारत ट्रेन को हरी झंडी दिखाने का सौभाग्य मिला। ये भी सोचिए, देश में चौथी वंदे भारत ट्रेन, इतना बड़ा हिंदुस्तान, इतने बड़े बड़े शहर, लेकिन चौथी ट्रेन अगर मिली तो मेरे हिमाचल को मिल गई।
The Uddhav Thackeray faction of the Shiv Sena has alleged bias by the Election Commission in the allegation of the party symbols and names. The Uddhav Thackeray faction wrote a scathing letter to the Election Commission today and said that the Election Commission of India gave a wide margin to the rival team Shinde to choose a name and symbol of their choice. War of words brewing between the Congress and the BJP after Pradhan Mantri Modi on Monday had said that he would be solving the Kashmir issue by walking in the footsteps of Sardar Patel. In fact, Congress leader Jairam Ramesh accused the BJP of what he termed as whitewashing real history and also said that Prime Minister Modi overlooked facts only to castigate Nehru on Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, Union Minister Kiran Rijiju on Wednesday launched a blistering attack on Congress's Jairam Ramesh over the history of the accession of Kashmir with India and also said that the Congress perpetuated a historical lie to protect the dubious role of Jawaharlal Nehru. Rijiju also said that Nehru rejected Hari Singh's accession request and came up with some special case for Kashmir and wanted much more than what he termed mere accession. Monderita, a class 12 student from Jamshedpur, contributed towards building toilets in rural areas and schools with the money that she'd saved in her piggy bank. Most girls were dropping out of her school due to lack of toilet facilities, after which Monderita decided to join hands with Prime Minister's Swachh Bharat mission.
तो मैंने क्या किया, उसी पॉकेट मनी को मैंने जमाना शुरू किया और 2014 में मैंने शुरू किया और 2016 में जाके मेरा पिगी बैंक जो है वो कम्प्लीटली फुल हो गया। तो मैंने जब उस पिगी बैंक को फोड़ा तब 24,000 रुपये निकले वहाँ से। तो उन्हीं 24,000 रुपये को हमने इन्वेस्ट किया और केंद्राडी गांव जो टेल्को के हुडको एरिया के जस्ट बगल में है, वहीं से पहले 2 टॉयलेट बना के ये जर्नी जो है वो शुरू हुई।
After incessant rains lashed several regions of Uttar Pradesh, residents were having to deal with a lot of water that flowed in from various rivers and went above the danger mark. The water levels of Rapti River was flowing well above the danger mark in Gorakhpur and this severely affected the nearby villages. The flood water even entered the homes of many villagers, forcing them to evacuate. The Royal Luxury liner and the train Palace on Wheels, which came to a halt in March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, was flagged off from the Safdarjung railway station in the national capital. This train will be running under the operation and maintenance model Bharat Gaurav train policy of the Indian Railways. And this award-winning train will leave Delhi every Wednesday on its scheduled time and will go through the cities of Rajasthan. Amid the change of guard in the BCCI top brass, the board president Saurav Ganguly broke his silence today and said that he cannot be an administrator forever. The former India captain is set to be replaced as board president by Roger Binny.
It's iconic when you enter the game in the morning, and after that I've gone back to play many a number of matches. Went back as captain, went back as commentator, went back as an administrator. So I can see the history behind that ground. How people come and enjoy it. It's an event. I got this 100 on a Saturday. So a Saturday at Lord's is completely packed. There's not one seat empty because it's a holiday, it's a weekend in England and people come and watch Test cricket. And England is still a place where Test cricket is alive. It was very much alive during our generation because there was no T20. And then obviously T20 cricket came in, the faster cricket came in. And in many places Test matches have started to take a back seat.
The Indian women's cricket team beat Thailand by 74 runs to enter Women's Asia Cup final. Chasing 149 for a victory, Thailand could only score 74 for 9 in their allotted 20 overs. And skipper Shaiwai and Nathaya also scored 21 each for Thailand, while Deepti Sharma was the pick of the Indian bowlers with figures of 3 for 7.
जब भी हम पाकिस्तान से खेलते हैं और हमेशा वो इंटरेस्टिंग गेम होता है एंड जस्ट हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि लाइक कौन फाइनल में खेलेगा बट यस हम लोगों का जो माइंड सेटअप है वो काफ़ी क्लियर है कि हम लोगों को क्या करना है हम जस्ट उसी चीज़ पे फोकस कर रहे हैं टीम के लिए अच्छा करते हो और हर चीज़ में आप कंट्रीब्यूट करते हो वो एक आपको कॉन्फिडेंस देता है जो मेरी स्ट्रेंथ है मैं हमेशा उस पर बॉल डालती हूँ और वही फोकस करती हूँ कि अपनी स्ट्रेंथ पे ज़्यादातर रहूँ.
Australian cricketer David Warner's lifetime leadership ban could be lifted as the Cricket Australia directors are contemplating rewriting the organisation's code of ethics. Warner was handed a leadership ban following the infamous 2018 ball tampering scandal. But the 35-year-old, who is closing in on 100 T20 internationals and 100 test appearances, has been looked upon as a possible candidate for Australia's vacant ODI captain's position. In a fresh twist in the Congress presidential poll, Shashi Tharoor has alleged that there is a difference in treatment between candidates within the party. Tharoor has claimed that there is a bias and an uneven playing field in the elections within the party, and the election for the Congress top leadership is supposed to happen on October 17, and the results will be declared on the 19th of October.
हम चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं, कोई दुश्मनी का कोई स्पिरिट नहीं है हमारे पार्टी में. खड़गे साहब तो मेरे सीनियर नेता है, मैं उनके साथ काम भी किया हूं. जब वो लोकसभा में लीडर थे मैं उनके साथ बहुत नज़दीकी से काम किया. ये तो दो सहयोगी एक साथ पार्टी की मजबूती के लिए किस तरीके के काम करना है, इसी के है हमारे चुनाव. मैं चाहता हूं कि हमारी पार्टी में इस किस्म की बदलाव आ जाए ताकि जो वोटर्स हमारे साथ नहीं रहे 2014 में और 2019 में कि वो वापस आए हमारे पास.
Prime Minister Modi was in poll-bound Himachal Pradesh today, where he flagged off the 4th Vande Bharat Express from Una to New Delhi. Later in the day, Prime Minister also laid the foundation stones of 2 hydropower projects and launched the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana in Una. The state government has announced and inaugurated projects worth more than 4,000 crores in different constituencies over the past month.
भारत की चौथी वंदे भारत ट्रेन को हरी झंडी दिखाने का सौभाग्य मिला. ये भी सोचिए, देश में चौथी वंदे भारत ट्रेन, इतना बड़ा हिंदुस्तान, इतने बड़े बड़े शहर, लेकिन
Back on the Nation at 5 with a big development which also comes as relief for the Muslim side in Varanasi, where the district judge turned around and rejected the plea of scientific investigation that was made by the Hindu Paksh. The judge, while in his order very clearly, the court saying that since the Supreme Court has protected this entire structure, that is the Vazu area, and what the Hindu Paksh claims is the original shivling of Adi Vishweshwar, this was found during the Advocate Commissioner's survey. No scientific investigation that includes carbon dating can be carried out without risk to damage of the structure, and because of the Supreme Court's directions that everything there should be preserved and should remain intact as it was, this court could not take that risk and could not then go ahead and commission the scientific investigation. The other aspect that the court mentioned in its judgment is that the current requirement of a survey or an entire scientific investigation under the Archaeological Survey of India is not required at this point in time, because that carbon dating aspect of scientific investigation will not address the points in law that are presented before the court. Now we are given to understand that the Hindu Paksh will go back to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to then judge or decide on the aspect of scientific investigation, because you have the Hindu Paksh saying it's a shivling and the Muslim Paksh saying no, it's a fountain.
ऑर्डर के अगेंस्ट हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगे। इस ऑर्डर को हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चुनौती देंगे। ये ऑर्डर अगेंस्ट द रिकॉर्ड है, क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने 20 मई के ऑर्डर से ट्रायल कोर्ट को पावर दी थी कि वो सारी एप्लीकेशन डिसाइड करेंगे। दूसरी बात, ये मांग लेके हम सारे महिलाएं याचिकाकर्ता सुप्रीम कोर्ट गए थे और सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा था कि आप ट्रायल कोर्ट को अप्रोच करिए। तो ट्रायल कोर्ट आज कह रहा है कि हम नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने सील कर रखा है। तो हम इस मांग को लेके अब दोबारा सुप्रीम कोर्ट के सामने जाएंगे।
आज प्लेंटिफ की कार्बन डेटिंग की एप्लीकेशन मुख्य 2 बिंदुओं को, जो कि मेरा ऑब्जेक्शन में भी था, विचार अपने ध्यान में रखते हुए, एक तो ये थे कि साहब ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने ये कहा था कि साहब जो तथाकथित शिवलिंग है जो कमीशन रिपोर्ट में प्राप्त हुआ है उसको पूरी तरह सुरक्षित रखा जाए। तो जिला जज साहब का ये व्यू था कि साहब सुप्रीम कोर्ट के आर्डर के सुरक्षित रखा जाए। अगर कार्बन डेटिंग के संबंध में कोई आर्डर किया जाए तो उसकी सुरक्षा प्रभावित होगी, एक पॉइंट ये। दूसरी, आम जनमानस की धार्मिक भावना आस्था को भी ख्याल रखते हुए उनकी कार्बन डेटिंग की एप्लीकेशन निरस्त किया है।
Let's try and go across to Subhash Jha, senior advocate, and Tushar Gupta also joining us at this point. I just seem to have lost my connection with the PCR. We'll try and connect with the control room again. But Subhash ji, I want to understand from you, is this, how would you see what the court's observations are today? Because there are 2 clauses. If you look at the original Supreme Court order, in that the point 2/2.1 very clearly empowers the district judge. In this case, the district judge has turned around and said, I'm not empowered to opine on this.
In my opinion, the learned judge has completely misread the order of the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court has relegated the issue for being adjudicated upon by the district judge, how does he do it? I mean, he has to do it on the basis of scientific tests, and the scientific test would mean to include carbon dating test also. So, in my assessment, prima facie, I feel that this order is erroneous. And as Vishnu Jain I have heard him saying that he will go to the Supreme Court. Go to the Supreme Court and have the order clarified. That's the only issue. I don't think there's something like winning or losing at this stage. All that the learned judge seems to have not comprehended the order of the Supreme Court. And this invariably happens. Not for the first time. The High Court or the lower court not able to construe the order of the Supreme Court properly, and then a litigant going back to the Supreme Court and seeking verification is not something which is very uncommon.
But Subhashji, see, this is what 2.1 says. Civil suit number 693 of 2021 shall stand transferred from the file of the civil judge, Senior Division Varanasi, to the court of the district judge, Varanasi, for trial, and all interlocutory and ancillary proceedings in the suit shall be addressed to and decided by the court of the district judge. This is what 2.1 turns around and says. But there is also the last part which says that it says, unless adequate arrangements for ensuring the due observance of Wazoo have already been made by district manager, we direct the district magistrate and consultant with the parties to ensure that appropriate arrangements are made for the religious observance. But they also say that pending disposal of the application, that this place should be secured, that this place should be marked out. That is also part of this very order. So now the judge is saying, so is the judge right in interpreting it that way, or was the judge actually empowered based on the Supreme Court's order?
I think, as I've said you, that the learned judge has completely misconstrued the order of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's order only says that it protect the structure, and by ordering a carbon dating, which is a scientific method of establishing the age of a structure, has got nothing to do with not protecting. So the learned judge is seeking to construe that issuing order of carbon dating would seek to interfere with the protection of the shrine or protection of the structure. In my assessment, that is not the correct interpretation at all. The learned judge, the Supreme Court, as you rightly said in the first part of the order, has relegated the issue for adjudication. How do you adjudicate a dispute unless until you do this structure which is age old? How do you decide this?
Or do Tushar Gupta is also with us of Swarajya. Tushar, Do you believe the judges said, don't put it on my head, just go back to the Supreme Court? This is like, typically it reminds me of file being passed around in bureaucracy. उसके पास भेजो, जिसके पास जाना है उसी के पास पहले गए थे, but वो कहता है सबके पास घूम के आओ फिर बाद में मेरे पास आओ.
Anand, you know, the irony is the truth is before our eyes. The shivling is before our eyes. We all know what it is. Even if the other side wants to claim it's a fountain that descended from the heaven, we all know it's a shivling. But at the end of the day, we need tangible proof. That is how the law of the land works. And it's only possible through scientific excavations. It's only possible through some scientific process. It might be carbon dating. It could be something else. That's for the experts to decide. But it has to be a scientific process. What is the judge wondering here? Is he thinking that the two parties will get in a court, there would be documents exchanged, debates would be held? That is not the case here. It has to be a scientific process which decides the legitimacy of the mosque that has been built over the shrine. That is the first aspect. Now, the second aspect you pointed out very correctly. The judge probably wanted to dodge a bullet. He wanted to give it a pass. He did not want to make the difficult announcement because it doesn't really add up that you want to protect the structure also, but you also decline the existence of the structure by saying that a scientific process की क्या जरूरत है, जो है जैसा है चलने दीजिए. So ये approach it doesn't add up really.
No, but Subhashji, the other part, the court also notes that ordering ASI for carbon dating won't help it in answering the questions of law involved in the suit. Would you agree with that? Because bulk of the petitions are challenging based on what each side is claiming exists there in the Gyanvapi Parisar.
See, I tell you, if you ask me a question, I would answer in a different way.
Ji.
How do you decide the structure? Now, see, please try to understand what is happening. When the issue comes of deciding an issue of Islamic faith, then you take recourse. The Supreme Court of India has placed reliance on Quran, on Sharia, and so many other things. So therefore, place reliance on our religious texts which are so old. No such exercise, in my assessment, if you ask me, of the suit, etc., is absolutely unnecessary exercise in futility. In my assessment, if you ask me to adjudicate, I would adjudicate on the basis of our religious text and decide. Where is the question of filing suit and fighting for years together and centuries together? This is all absolutely unwarranted and unnecessary exercise in my assessment. And having said that, it doesn't matter. Now, the learned judge is trying a suit. How does you otherwise adjudicate upon the issue? All this exercises in case of Ayodhya. Carbon dating and finding the age of those stone structures which were found beneath the structures. Now, all these exercises have been gone into by the courts. Eventually decided the complex issue.
Absolutely. Subhashji and Tusharji, thank you very, very much for joining us here on The Nation at 5. We hope to be able to speak with the main petitioner in the case, Vishnu Shankar Jain, or the lawyer on behalf of the petitioner, and one of the petitioners among the 5 ladies who moved the court later tonight on the right stand. For the moment, taking a very short break. When we come back, an interesting story from Uttar Pradesh where the Madrasa survey is on, but reports suggest that in about 20 districts, nearly 800 of them are not following due process. Stay with us. We get the Madrasa Board Chairman to speak with us on The Nation at 5 when we come back.
And we'll go through the cities of Rajasthan. Amid the change of guard in the BCCI top brass, the board president Saurav Ganguly broke his silence today and said that he cannot be an administrator forever. The former India captain is set to be replaced as board president by Roger Billy.
It's iconic when you enter the game in the morning, and after that I've gone back to play many a number of matches, went back as captain, went back as commentator, went back as an administrator. So I can see the history behind that ground. How people come and enjoy it. It's an event. I got this 100 on a Saturday. So a Saturday at Lord's is completely packed. There's not one seat empty because it's a holiday, it's a weekend in England, and people come and watch Test cricket. And England is still a place where Test cricket is alive. It was very much alive during our generation because there was no T20. and then obviously T20 cricket came in, the faster cricket came in, and in many places test matches have started to take a back seat.
The Indian women's cricket team beat Thailand by 74 runs to enter Women's Asia Cup final. Chasing 149 for a victory, Thailand could only score 74 for 9 in their allotted 20 overs. And skipper Shaiwai and Nathaya also scored 21 each for Thailand, while Deepti Sharma was the pick of the Indian bowlers with figures of 3 for 7.
जब भी हम पाकिस्तान से खेलते हैं और हमेशा वो इंटरेस्टिंग गेम होता है एंड जस्ट हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि लाइक कौन फाइनल में खेलेगा, बट यस हम लोगों का जो माइंड सेटअप है वो काफ़ी क्लियर है कि हम लोगों को क्या करना है. हम जस्ट उसी चीज़ पे फोकस कर रहे हैं. टीम के लिए अच्छा करते हो और हर चीज़ में आप कंट्रीब्यूट करते हो, वो एक आपको कॉन्फिडेंस देता है. जो मेरी स्ट्रेंथ है मैं हमेशा उस पर बॉल डालती हूँ और वही फोकस करती हूँ कि अपनी स्ट्रेंथ पे ज़्यादातर रहूँ.
Australian cricketer David Warner's lifetime leadership ban could be lifted as the Cricket Australia directors are contemplating rewriting the organisation's code of ethics. Warner was handed a leadership ban following the infamous 2018 ball tampering scandal. But the 35-year-old, who is closing in on 100 T20 internationals and 100 test appearances, has been looked upon as a possible candidate for Australia's vacant ODI captain's position. In a fresh twist in the Congress presidential poll, Shashi Tharoor has alleged that there is a difference in treatment between candidates within the party. Tharoor has claimed that there is a bias and an uneven playing field in the elections within the party, and the election for the Congress top leadership is supposed to happen on October 17, and the results will be declared on the 19th of October.
हम चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं, कोई दुश्मनी का कोई स्पिरिट नहीं है हमारे पार्टी में. खड़गे साहब तो मेरे सीनियर नेता है, मैं उनके साथ काम भी किया हूं. जब वो लोकसभा में लीडर थे मैं उनके साथ बहुत नज़दीकी से काम किया. ये तो दो सहयोगी एक साथ पार्टी की मजबूती के लिए किस तरीके के काम करना, इसी के है हमारे चुनाव. मैं चाहता हूं कि हमारी पार्टी में इस किस्म की बदलाव आ जाए ताकि जो वोटर्स हमारे साथ नहीं रहे 2014 में और 2019 में, कि वो वापस आए हमारे पास.
Prime Minister Modi was in poll-bound Himachal Pradesh today, where he flagged off the 4th Vande Bharat Express from Una to New Delhi. Later in the day, Prime Minister also laid the foundation stones of 2 hydropower projects and launched the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana in Una. The state government has announced and inaugurated projects worth more than 4,000 crores in different constituencies over the past month.
Back on the nation at 5 with news just coming in from Uttar Pradesh on the Madrasa survey, where reports suggest that although the survey is not yet complete, findings so far also indicate gross misconduct in management of many madrasas. Reports suggest that in districts like Prayagraj, Muradabad, many madrasas have failed to give satisfactory details of their sources of funding and affiliations. In all, around 16,500 madrasas in Uttar Pradesh are recognized by the State Madrasa Board, of which about 500 are government-aided, but there are thousands of other madrasas which are affiliated to other private bodies which so far have had no check or no update on how they are functioning, where their source of funds is, etc. Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Javed, the chairman of the state board, has said that the survey is still being done in several districts and the delay was due to Dussehra and also inclement weather over the last 2 or 3 weeks. That's why the initially set date of October 10th could not be completed. Now, we have with us, and I'm just going to check, yes, we do have with us Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed, Chairman Uttar Pradesh of the Madrasa Education. Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed Javed, namaste. Thank you very, very much for speaking with us here at CNN News 18. मेरा पहला प्रश्न आपसे ये है कि ये जो मदरसा सर्वे का काम होना था, ये 10 अक्टूबर तक संपूर्ण होना था, ये अब तक क्यों नहीं हो पाया है कंप्लीट?
देखिए, पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश में कुल 75 जिले हैं और सर्वे काम 5 तक चलना था, लेकिन बीच में दशहरे की छुट्टियां वगैरह थी, तो उस डेट को बढ़ा के 20 अक्टूबर कर दिया गया. तो अलग अलग जिलों का इस तरह से आंकड़ा मिल पाना लगभग नामुमकिन है. अब वो अभी सर्वे चल भी रहा है, क्योंकि डेट्स की कमी हो रही थी. लोगों ने कहा कि वहाँ के अधिकारियों ने निवेदन किया कि थोड़ा समय बढ़ाया जाए, तो हम लोगों ने समय को बढ़ाया है। अब 20 अक्टूबर तक सर्वे होगा, उसके बाद वो लोग एनालिसिस करके अपनी रिपोर्ट शासन को 15 नवंबर तक भेजने वाले हैं।
15 नवंबर तक आपके पास रिपोर्ट आ जाएगी, लेकिन अभी कुछ जिलों में जहां जहां सर्वे हुआ है वहां कई ऐसा बताया जा रहा है और खबरें हैं, अखबारों में भी आया है कि अवैध मदरसे हैं कई सारे जो अवैध रूप से फंक्शन कर रहे हैं।
ये अवैध शब्द कहां से पैदा हुआ, इसकी भी एक जांच होनी चाहिए कि ये शब्द आया कहां से। न तो मदरसा बोर्ड की मीटिंग में ये शब्द आया था कभी, न शासन के किसी भी आदेश में जो सर्वे का आदेश हुआ इसमें कहीं भी ये शब्द जिक्र नहीं है। जो हमें क्वेश्चनर जो प्रोफार्मा भेजा है जिलों में, जिलाधिकारी के जरिए से जो सर्वे हो रहा है, 3 लोगों की टीम उसकी सर्वे की रिपोर्ट ला रही है, दे रही है जिलाधिकारी के यहाँ, उस प्रोफार्मा में भी कहीं अवैध शब्द का जिक्र नहीं है। ये अवैध शब्द पैदा किसने किया, इसकी भी आने वाले दिनों में एक जांच होनी चाहिए। ये कहां से पैदा हो गया शब्द, इलीगल लीगल ये सब चीजें नहीं हो रही हैं। ये साधारण सर्वे है जो स्कूलों के भी होते हैं, कॉलेजों के भी होते हैं, यूनिवर्सिटीज के होते हैं, समय समय पर होते रहते हैं। पहली बार हम लोगों ने मदरसे का जो गैर मान्यता प्राप्त है मदरसे, उनका सर्वे कराने का फैसला लिया 15 जून को। शासन ने उसकी नोटिफिकेशन जारी किया 31 अगस्त को। तो सर्वे हो रहा है, इसमें कहीं कोई जांच हो ही नहीं रही है। तो जो लोग इस उम्मीद में बैठे हुए हैं कि हमें अवैध और वैध का आंकड़ा मिलेगा, उनको आने वाले दिनों में केवल और केवल निराशा मिलेगी, क्योंकि ये ऐसा कोई सर्वे में, ऐसा कोई प्रोफार्मा में क्वेश्चनर है ही नहीं है।
नहीं, प्रोफार्मा में जो क्वेश्चनर है जावेद जी, तो उसमें ऐसा बताया जा रहा है कि 20 जिलों में से करीब 800 ऐसे मदरसे हैं जो सारे बॉक्सेस टिक नहीं करते, तो इसीलिए उन्हें अवैध बताया जा रहा है।
क्यों इस तरह की चीजें हो रही हैं, ये समझ से परे है। ये हास्यास्पद पैदा हो रही है, क्योंकि हम लोग एजुकेशन सेक्टर में काम कर रहे हैं, एक मदरसों की बेहतरी के लिए काम कर रहे हैं। हमारे यहाँ 16,513 मदरसों का आंकड़ा मौजूद है जो हमारे बोर्ड से मान्यता प्राप्त है। उनमें 560 मदरसों को हम अनुदान देते हैं, ये भी आंकड़ा हमारे पास है। समय समय पे मदरसों पे उंगलियां उठती रही हैं। इसलिए हम लोगों ने बीच में जो राष्ट्रीय बाल संरक्षण आयोग है, उनका भी पत्र आया था कि आप मदरसों को जरा एक सर्वे करा के स्थिति स्पष्ट करिए। तो हम लोग ये जानना चाहते हैं कि आखिर ये जो गैर मान्यता प्राप्त है, जो हमारे बोर्ड से एफिलिएटेड नहीं है, उनकी क्या स्थिति है, क्या हालात उनके हैं, उनकी बिल्डिंग कैसी है, उनका इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर कैसा है, उनके यहाँ बच्चे कितने हैं, शिक्षक कितने हैं, उनके यहाँ बिजली पानी की व्यवस्था क्या है, उनके यहाँ बिल्डिंग की हालात निजी बिल्डिंग है या किराए की है, कैसे हालात हैं, इन पे एक हम डेटा कलेक्शन का काम कर रहे हैं। ये कोई किसी भी ग्रुप में किसी प्रकार का कोई इन्वेस्टिगेशन, कोई जांच नहीं है, किसी को वैध और अवैध की सर्टिफिकेट नहीं मिलने वाले हैं। ये सिंपल सर्वे है। सर्वे के द्वारा हमें एक डेटा प्राप्त होगा जो पहले हमें 25 अक्टूबर तक मिलना था, जिसकी तारीख बढ़ करके अब 15 नवंबर पहुंच गई है। इसके पहले बेवजह की बातें करना, बेतुकी बातें करना, ये समझ से परे है। हम सबको काम करने में असहजता की स्थिति पैदा हो रही है।
जी, तो आप कह रहे हैं कि इसकी वजह से आपको शायद दिक्कतें आई, ग्राउंड पे दिक्कतें आई है कि नहीं ये भी बताइए। लेकिन कुछ ऐसे प्रश्न हैं उस प्रश्नावली में जो फोकस होंगे, सोर्स ऑफ फंडिंग कहाँ से है, आप कैसे अपना चला रहे हैं, आप कैसे, आपको ये जगह मिली, जगह जो आपने जहाँ से आप ये मदरसा चला रहे हैं लीगल है इलीगल है, किस तरह की स्टाफिंग है, ये सारे प्रश्न हैं। इसमें कहीं आपको कुछ गड़बड़ मिला है, घोटाला मिला है कुछ मदरसों के फंक्शनिंग में अब तक जो सर्वे हुआ है?
माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का सपना है मुसलमान के बच्चे के एक हाथ में कुरान और एक हाथ में कंप्यूटर होना चाहिए। और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी बनने के बाद से 8 साल से लगातार सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबके विश्वास की बात कर रहे हैं। हम सब उस दिशा में प्रयास कर रहे हैं जिसे उन्होंने सबका प्रयास नाम दिया। पार्टी या सरकार लगातार सर्व समाज के लिए काम कर रही है। हमने पहले ही कहा कि स्कूलों के सर्वे होते रहे हैं, कॉलेजों के होते रहे हैं, यूनिवर्सिटीज के लिए बाकायदा नैक की टीम जाती है और वो जाकर के यूनिवर्सिटीज की ग्रेडिंग करती है, उनके सर्वे करती है। हम लोगों ने जिन्हें इस कौम को या इस समाज को, इन मदरसों पर जिसकी किसी को ध्यान नहीं जा रहा था, हम लोगों ने इसको, इनके बच्चों को, मदरसों के बच्चों को, जो हमारे देश और प्रदेश के बच्चे हैं, कल के ये मुस्तकबिल है, फ्यूचर है, इनकी बेहतरी के लिए हम काम कर रहे हैं। हम अपने यहाँ के सिलेबस को लगातार दुरुस्त कर रहे हैं। हम चाहते हैं कि बच्चे दिन की चीजें पढ़ें, कुरान पढ़ें, हदीस पढ़ें, दुनियात पढ़ें, लेकिन साथ में साइंस, मैथ, कंप्यूटर पढ़ें, सोशल पढ़ें। इसके लिए हम सब प्रयास कर रहे हैं। हमारा ये था कि जो हमारे यहाँ से एफिलिएटेड बच्चे हैं, पढ़ रहे हैं मदरसों में, उनके बाद उनका आंकड़ा तो हमें मिल जा रहा है, उनकी तालीम कैसे हो रही मिल जा रहा है, लेकिन जो मान्यता हमारे यहाँ से नहीं है, जो कहीं ना कहीं से और जुड़े हुए हैं, उनका सिलेबस क्या है, वो कौन से बोर्ड से मान्यता लेके पढ़ा रहे हैं या कैसे कर रहे हैं, उनका पाठ्यक्रम क्या है, उनका कब वो एस्टेब्लिश हुए, उनकी बिल्डिंग कैसी है, उनकी सुविधाएं कैसी हैं। बच्चे देश के हैं, बच्चे प्रदेश के हैं, बच्चे सारे अपने हैं। उन बच्चों के भविष्य के बेहतर बनाने के लिए सरकार प्रतिबद्ध है। सरकार शिक्षा के मामले में अच्छी गुणवत्ता के साथ, अच्छी उनकी व्यवस्था के साथ उनको शिक्षा देना चाहती है। उनको देश और समाज के मेन स्ट्रीम में लाना चाहती है, मुख्य धारा में जोड़ना चाहती है। वो कहीं से भी अलग थलग ना पढ़ने पाए, इसकी चिंता हम कर रहे हैं। इस कड़ी में सर्वे हो रहा है। सर्वे से किसी भी मदरसे को हम वैध अवैध का सर्टिफिकेट नहीं इशू करने वाले हैं।
डॉक्टर इफ्तिकार अहमद, थैंक यू वेरी वेरी मच। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद समय निकालकर हमसे बात करने के लिए। 15 नवंबर को रिपोर्ट तैयार होगी। उस रिपोर्ट में आंकड़े क्या बयां करते हैं उस पर आपसे जरूर बात करेंगे। फिलहाल हमसे बात करने के लिए धन्यवाद। शॉर्ट ब्रेक हियर ऑन द नेशन एट 5। स्टे विद अस।
Brewing between the Congress and the BJP after Pradhan Mantri Modi on Monday had said that he would be solving the Kashmir issue by walking in the footsteps of Sardar Patel. In fact, Congress leader Jairam Ramesh accused the BJP of what he termed as whitewashing real history and also said that Prime Minister Modi overlooked facts only to castigate Nehru on Jammu and Kashmir. Meanwhile, Union Minister Kiran Rijiju on Wednesday launched a blistering attack on Congress's Jairam Ramesh over the history of the accession of Kashmir with India and also said that the Congress perpetuated a historical lie to protect the dubious role of Jawaharlal Nehru. Rijiju also said that Nehru rejected Hari Singh's accession request and came up with some special case for Kashmir and wanted much more than what he termed mere accession. Mondirita, a class 12 student from Jamshedpur, contributed towards building toilets in rural areas and schools with the money that she'd saved in her piggy bank. Most girls were dropping out of her school due to lack of toilet facilities, after which Mondirita decided to join hands with Prime Minister's Swachh Bharat mission.
तो मैंने क्या किया, उसी पॉकेट मनी को मैंने जमाना शुरू किया और 2014 में मैंने शुरू किया और 2016 में जाके मेरा पिगी बैंक जो है वो कम्प्लीटली फुल हो गया। तो मैंने जब उस पिगी बैंक को फोड़ा तब 24,000 रुपये निकले वहाँ से। तो उन्हीं 24,000 रुपये को हमने इन्वेस्ट किया और केंद्राडी गांव जो टेल्को के हुडको एरिया के जस्ट बगल में है, वहीं से पहले 2 टॉयलेट बना के ये जर्नी जो है वो शुरू हुई।
After incessant rains lashed several regions of Uttar Pradesh, residents were having to deal with a lot of water that flowed in from various rivers and went above the danger mark. The water levels of Rapti River was flowing well above the danger mark in Gorakhpur and this severely affected the nearby villages. The flood water even entered the homes of many villages, forcing them to evacuate. The Royal Luxury liner and the train Palace on Wheels, which came to a halt in March 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, was flagged off from the Safdarjung railway station in the national capital. This train will be running under the operation and maintenance model Bharat Gaurav train policy of the Indian Railways. And this award-winning train will leave Delhi every Wednesday on its scheduled time and will go through the cities of Rajasthan. Amid the change of guard in the BCCI top brass, the board president Saurav Ganguly broke his silence today and said that he cannot be an administrator forever. The former India captain is set to be replaced as board president by Roger Binny.
Back on the nation at 5 with what's happening in China, ladies and gentlemen. Ahead of the entire presidential meeting and re-election of Xi Jinping, there were huge amount of rumors that were doing the rounds on social media that there has been a revolt. There are massive protests in Beijing and that there perhaps is a military revolt. It was all over social media and it was all dismissed as rumor mongering. And President Xi Jinping did surface a week later. But now there is more information coming through that there are signs of protests. Chinese people are upset with the CCP and Xi Jinping, and these protests are only increasing and getting bolder. Have a look at this. This huge banner against Xi Jinping being raised at the Sitong Bridge in the Haidan district. Any footprint of these visuals has been removed. They are laboriously removing it from social media. That's the level to which the PLA mechanism machinery is trying to erase any social media footprint. CNN News 18 still accessing these visuals where one man stood there trying to say no to this to the great leader and say yes to freedom and no to lies. This is what he was shouting on top of the bridge. He was immediately arrested by the cops. China then removed all signs of protest from social media. That's the effort. So dramatic visuals, these as such a huge poster comes out. And Siddhant is with us. Siddhant, there is something which is brewing in China at this point, and these are visuals that are coming through around a time that Xi Jinping is trying to stake claim as president for life and also be elected for a third term.
Well, exactly 48 hours is remaining, and this time around, dissent is not just brewing. The anger is not with the normal people, but within the Communist Party also. In fact, there were several rumors of Xi Jinping getting house arrested. He won't be allowed to take to repeat the third term. Also, Anand, important point here is that is China fearing Tiananmen Square embarrassment again? Because the kind of censorship that is being implemented all across China from last 7 days, people are facing problem in accessing social media, Weibo and WeChats. They are facing problem. The surface is running slow. The servers are being blocked. And when the question was asked to the Chinese government, the reply was given that they are just censoring the rumors which are unverified. This is what a reply. But people are facing problems. And in fact, the reports are suggesting that people are complaining about not being able to access the social media. Weibo and WeChats are widely used in China. Also, the protest that happened today, you know, this was again the zero COVID policy of Xi Jinping, which is being heavily criticized because the testing is going on all across China. The quarantine is going on and people are being harassed on the name of zero COVID policy.
Well, very dramatic tweets that came in saying a banner against Xi Jinping is raised at the Sitong Bridge, Haidian district. Beijing admire the courage of this man, but when the giant ship sank, the screams of the passengers were only the meaning of tragedy. The Great Translation Movement. Now, this hashtag of the Great Translation Movement has been going on for a while. There is also this whole aspect of Tuidiang, that is, see democracy or say no to no to PLA kind of a thing.
Correct.
So this has been championed for a while now.
But that's what, Anand, it has a lot to do with the dissent within the Communist Party, because she is repeating the third term, is going to repeat the third term. And in fact, we have also been told, Anand, that he's going to get the title of the leader, which the great leader. This title was given to Mao. He was the only who got this title. And she has, eliminated all his rival within the party by slapping corruption charges on them. So few are remaining, those who are challenging Xi's power. This time around, they are also going to get eliminated. So these protests, the dissent which is brewing, has more to do with the dissent within the Communist Party. And less than 48 hours are remaining. More than 2,300 delegates are going to attend this great choreographed Communist Party conference where all these the elite coterie of grandees unite and then they select their leader. And she is also going to deliver a speech. He's also going to talk about all the works that he has done in last 5 years, and then he's going to get the third term as the General Secretary of the party.
More importantly, whether or not he is going to be talking about his expansionist design. It'll all be hidden in the passages or certain choice of words which will be done, and analysts would see how aggressive he's going to get. like you said, he's followed on the footsteps of Mao. He's trying to portray himself as the next Mao of China, and also trying to outline that entire vision that was laid out by Mao in 1949 of where China needs to be by 2049, 100 years later. So all of that coming to play. Siddhant, thank you for your inputs. That's all we have time for in this edition of The Nation at 5. Viewpoint with Zaka right now. Hello and welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Zaka Jacob. A significant development in the Gyanvapi case today, where a district court in Varanasi ordered that the Hindu side's petition of asking for carbon dating of the object that was found at the Wazukhana, which the Hindu side claims is a shivling, the Muslim side claims is nothing but a fountain. Today the court has said that there does not need to be any carbon dating, or for that matter any scientific process to investigate the date of origin of that object. Now, the Hindu side, of course, is saying that they will challenge this in a higher court, presumably the High Court in Allahabad. But short of that, carbon dating was the only scientific means to establish how old this particular object was. And if the Hindu side is not able to establish the age of that object, then there will be a lesser chance of them being able to prove their case that this was indeed a shivling. So how does one see the order of the Varanasi district judge today? Does the Hindu side still have elbow room for an appeal and try and reverse this decision? And was the judge simply trying to put an end to this controversy, a full stop to this controversy, by taking the position that he cannot order carbon dating of this fountain or shivling, call it what you want, because it would go against the Supreme Court's order, which is to preserve the monument as is?
The twists and turns continue in the Gyanvapi case. Now the Varanasi District Court has rejected the Hindu side's demand for carbon dating of the shivling found inside the mosque complex. The court said any survey like a carbon dating will be in violation of Supreme Court's order of sealing of the Wazukhana where the shivling was found. The court also said that any harm to the structure will violate the top court's order to protect the shivling, and that any harm to the shivling will also hurt religious sentiments and lessen chances of a resolution to the legal dispute.
इस ऑर्डर के अगेंस्ट हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगे. इस ऑर्डर को हम सुप्रीम